Hello and welcome to Meet Our Makers, an artist interview podcast produced in association with Beats Per Minute. I'm your host, Jeremy J. Facette. On this episode, we get to meet Bonnie Prince Billy. Bonnie Prince Billy is actually the long-held pseudonym of singer, songwriter, experimental musician Will Oldham. And in this chat, at the end of 2023, he and I get quite a bit into his newest record, which some sources say is his 21st record, called Keeping Secrets Will Destroy You, which came out earlier this year. In addition to talking about the production, songwriting, and thematic links of these new songs, we also talk about the wisdom of older musicians, the magic of collaborating with other people, and his penchant for selecting the perfect singing partners. We touch on the bluntness that he has kind of been famous for in his lyricism. We talk about his intermittent acting career, which was originally what he wanted to do with his life, as well as the early years in bands like Palace Brothers and Palace Music and Palace. We also touch upon the lasting legacy and wonder of his most famous song, I See a Darkness, which has recently been covered by Rosalia and was covered a few years back by Johnny Cash. We talk about what that song means to him now and how he keeps it feeling fresh and interesting to him all these years on. We talk about a lot in between as well. It was, as you'd probably expect if you're a fan of Will's music, a relatively rambling conversation, but in a really lovely way. He was warm, inviting, and really down to speak about anything, and you can tell just how much he loves what he does. So thank you for listening. This is me meeting Bonnie Prince Billy.
We almost sound like AI, but I'm just getting accustomed to speaking to more and more human simulations, I guess.
No, I promise I'm very real.
They do. I've actually had AI say, "I can assure you, I'm a real person."
Oh, I'm sure you have.
which is not necessarily an untruth, because of course anyone can assure whether it's true or not. They can.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true. Well, I'm here. You're here. I think you're real. I'm pretty sure you're the real Will Oldham. All right.
They've developed AI to be as ridiculous as I am. They're working.
In time, just give it time.
Yeah.
So hi, Will. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm dealing with a cold right now. So that's probably another reason why I sound a little creepy. My voice is like an octave lower, I think, right now.
It's just like so clear and compressed. You must have a really nice microphone. How's my sound quality? Is it okay?
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming around to hang out for a little bit today. Thank you for that.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. I got sort of, I was looking through the end of the year here, and I forget if I had tried to reach out when your album came out earlier this year or not, but I was thinking, who could I invite as sort of a year-end, year in review guests? And so you were one of those people, and so I appreciate you agreeing to come on.
Terrific.
So you have had, what were you going to say?
Bring it out together, the year.
Yeah, exactly. So you have had a rather nice year, at least in terms of from where I'm sitting. Yeah. You put out your newest record, Keeping Secrets Will Destroy You, back in the summer on good old Drag City. I have no idea what number record it is. Usually I like to tell my guests, oh, it's your 9th record, but there are varying accounts on which record this is for you. Wikipedia told me it's your 21st. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Yeah, I don't either.
Who knows?
Yeah, I'm guessing, I think the first Bonnie Prince Billy record was in 98 or 99, and now we are, it's about 24, 25 years later. So it surprised me if there were 20 or so records.
Well, you do. I mean, I think some of it depends on what you count, because you have a lot of collaborative stuff and sort of mini albums here and there. So I'm wondering what their metric is. But according to them, it's your 21st record. It came out back in August, I want to say, and you've been touring it quite a bit since then. How has this year, especially the last half of the year, treated you since releasing the album. I mean, were you happy with the way it seemed like it was received, or especially when you were playing it and whatnot? Like, how did it go for you?
I love the record. I loved making the record, and I have loved the performances that do seem to be audiences, and like to tie records to shows, whether or not that ultimately makes sense. They do coincide. So, but I've really appreciated what's happened on the road and on the stages and with the audiences recently, or over the course of the past year. Because I started playing the record for the first time in this working life. I started playing the record about a year before recording it, I think, live. So to me, I've been touring the record even before making the record.
Yeah.
And it does work that way, because people will say, well, where's that song? So it is, I guess, advanced promotion for the record. But it's felt good. It's felt good. The metrics keep changing.
Right.
How we look at, for so many reasons. One of them is that I'm an older human being. Another is that I'm a white Judeo-Christian straight American male, and it's wonderful in many ways that certain scales of justice are tipping, so that other voices are heard more than mine is these days.
Yeah. But I mean,
it just changes everything.
Right. And I mean, you as you said, I mean, you've been putting out records as Bonnie Prince Billy for you said almost 24, 25 years. You had a few records before that under different names. So you've been around for quite a while, and it must be gratifying, despite obviously we want those other voices to be let in on the conversation, but it must be gratifying that you can put out a record now and you still have people coming out to see you play these songs. That must be nice, because not everyone gets that this late in their career,
It is I think the places where the things that I pay attention to in terms of working in music might be, I think are different from where a lot of people put their energy. And I think it was always intended as a very, very long form conversation. So I'm not and it's still seemingly valid and valuable to a number of individuals, and that is. But I think I'm thinking about these days. I'm thinking about today. I was thinking about Merle Haggard and certain other big country artists, and talking about as they got into their 50s, 60s, 70s, and even beyond with some folks. Not counting Willie Nelson, because he's an anomaly in so many ways, but basically complaining that country radio wasn't playing their music as they got older. And it does seem maybe it's not coincidental that I'm willing to start to argue for about ageism as much as the other thing, but partly because we're shooting ourselves societally in the foot by praising and lifting up the non-existent wisdom of young folks, and denying that there is any validity to the voices of the older population, when I think it makes more sense to understand that ideally older folks are going to know more and know better how to express what they know than anybody else on the planet. So yeah.
It's interesting too, though, because every like few years there's like an older sort of legacy artist, for lack of better words, who like gets quite a few nominations at like the Grammys, and it always feels like such an anomaly when that happens. It's like it's almost like a okay, we're going to clap for you right now, and then we're going to give the award to someone younger.
Yeah. And it's commerce and it's music business.
Of course, yeah.
That is what we're involved with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a country artist?
No, I mean, I don't.
Do you consider yourself anything?
Yeah, I don't. I think I've always thought about the way it doesn't ultimately sound like it, but I think I've always considered myself, for lack of any other better expression, to be an experimental musician. It's just my toolbox is kind of traditional song forms with clear lyrics, more or less. But beyond that, it's all about expanding at least my own concept and whatever audiences are willing to go along on the ride, their concept of what a song is, has been, and can still be, and what the experience of even distribution, the medium, the actual physical medium, or the streaming medium, or the digital medium, the distribution, the relationship to a record label, the relationship to an audience, the relationship to a venue, the relationship to the price of a record or the price of a show, or collaborative partners. These are each a big element in every thing that I dig into. But I think it's not conventional, and people, don't, whatever, they don't hear it or don't see it. It's fine.
Yeah. So this new record, it's your first in a few years. You released you released your last one before the pandemic, and then before that there was quite a few years between that one and the one before that. I feel like you are someone who in the late 90s and 2000s was like incredibly prolific and put out a lot of work. And now when a Bonnie Prince Billy record comes out, it feels kind of like this momentous occasion. So when this one was announced, I was very excited, and it's a lovely record. I think it's one of your most just like outright prettiest records. I don't know if you would agree or disagree with that, but that's from where I'm sitting. That's how I feel.
It is definitely gorgeous. The performances on it are gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the instrumentation is beautiful. The melodies are beautiful. So with this one, since it was a few years, and you're one of those kind of musicians now who put, like I said, put one out right before this pandemic, and now we're kind of obviously at the tail end of this pandemic. A lot of people put one out in the midst of it, but you didn't. So with this,
I mean, I actually, I feel like I feel just my mind is. I'm feeling very fortunate because I'm feeling there have been things like over the course of 2020 with Bill Callahan and
true, yep,
and all of the collaborators. We made this blind date party, virtual record, sort of lifeline extended to all our collaborators as well as to audiences. And that was, in my life, it was massive. At the same time, we had, as lockdown occurred, Matt Sweeney and I had just finished our second record together, Super Wolves, and we mixed it in the first, I think we mixed it separately in two different sessions in April of 2020, and then it came out, I don't remember if it came out 2020 or 2021, but it came out during that time. And that, both of those things were, I couldn't believe, how that my life had led me to those pieces of work, because I'm just kind of blown away by the quality of the collaborations in both of those. And then my friend and colleague Emmett Kelly, around that time, began a cassette-only label called Ha Ha Institute and asked me to contribute a record. And so there was a record called High and Mighty that's a cassette-only release on Ha Ha.
Oh, okay.
Came out during that time too. So I
feel busy.
And I feel like with this one, these four things like I say, I'm not sure if it's, I don't know. I just feel really fortunate. And with all of the Drag City crew and the Domino crew overseas,
Mm-hmm.
it's felt like as many challenges as we've had in the music world and with everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of felt like the musically easily some of the greatest times of my life.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you say you feel fortunate. That's a really fortunate sort of inversion of what a lot of people went through. So it's good. I mean, I had forgotten about the Bill Callahan collaborative record, and then yeah, the Super Wolves album. So yeah, you did stay busy. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
great. Um, and then of
I mean, being at
course,
home with no distractions, and the only thing I had to pay attention to really was keeping my family happy and healthy,
right.
and working on music. And so that was just, that aspect of COVID-19 was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And then that dovetails into this album and the writing and recording of this album. And I'm curious with Keeping Secrets Will Destroy You, what some of the sort of driving forces were behind it for you, or what you were hoping to sort of tackle with this album.
Over the course of that lockdown time, I, I've always looked at life and music and interpersonal relationships as having a lot of urgency. And that's not something you necessarily walk down the street or hang out with folks who seem to carry that sense of urgency. Even as we're told that the planet is dying, or we can see things happening that require our thoughtful attention. It was during, one of the other things that for once I felt I fit in with the rest of the world, because everybody was all of a sudden aware that life actually does have a constant urgency about it. And it felt like I felt like I understood for a little while, because my connection with my friends, my colleagues, and the audiences. Some of and there's those sets intersect. Um, that music, how crucial and valuable and important music was to our lives, to sustain us. Um, I think that, and a lot of these songs began their lives during that time. But I feel like the record carried on from that realization or understanding, and I felt for a moment that I had the ability and the authority to imbue these songs with a justified sense of value that
Mm,
is not always easy to approach or realize or transmit. But when the record was done, I thought, oh boy, there was a lot of momentum, and I don't know moving forward now how to find that again. So I don't, part of me is like, oh, it's
yeah.
all over now. Um, because getting people to focus, I guess, there are forces that seem hell bent on destroying our desire and ability to focus on anything, which is hard for people who are trying to make things
Hmm.
for other people, or for people trying to do virtually anything in their lives.
So I also, connected to this record, I also want to talk about I guess, almost would be title track that you just put out recently.
Yeah.
Um, Keeping Secrets Will Destroy You. So you released this song as a standalone single. It's not part of the album.
Yeah.
Um, How come it wasn't on the proper record? Did it just not fit on there?
There was another group of songs. We put it out on a cassette accompanying a bundle with the record when the record came out. And that cassette is called Old, Hard, and Marvelous. And I think there's 7 songs on it. And at one point during lockdown, I wrote to a friend of mine named Tom Colton, who's a farmer in Eastern Shore of Virginia. I said, would you send me some song titles? So he sent me a postcard with about 30 song titles on it. And I picked seven or 8 of them to try to write songs from, and worked out this song form that now I'm calling these repeaters, because the songs became they were acrostic. So like he sent a song title Herons, Herons, and I didn't know why he sent any of these song titles, and so I thought, well, how can I make a song from this title? And I decided to approach it, kind of coldly, I guess, and turn it into these acrostic lyrics, so that herons, I wrote herons down the left side of the page, and then the first line had to start with H, second line with E, second line, third line with R. And then I had a 6-line song, and that's a really short song. And all of these songs were short like that, 6 to 12 lines. And so I thought, well, what if we repeat them, repeat them over and over and over again, and then ideally present them to audiences. And they're so short that the dream was that I could teach the songs to the audience in a live setting, and they could be singing along by the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th time through the song.
Yeah.
And there was a song on there, or there's one of those songs he had sent a title, Tense Hash, TENTS/HASH. And so I wrote a song and did a couple of performances of these repeaters. One was at Mass Mocha as part of Wilco's music festival that they do there, and one of them was at Chicago Festival of the Humanities, I think it's called, at just a show, and had wonderful musicians come along and printed up song lyric sheets to hand out to the audience. And one of those songs, Tense Hash, is this. That's the one that is we're now calling Keeping Secrets Will Destroy You. And when I made the record, I had songs to choose from, because I've been doing nothing but working on songs during all this time.
Yeah.
And my wife was very fond of that song. And when it came down to ultimately recording the record and picking songs, I didn't choose that song. And she was really irritated. And I thought, as a consolation, that I would call the record Keeping Secrets Will Destroy You. And she was happy with that, but she still was a little disgruntled. Then my friend and colleague Shahzad Ismaili, who I've worked with a bunch, he significantly contributed to the record Wolfroy Goes to Town. He was sort of the recording engineer and kind of co-producer with Emmett Kelly and me. And he said, I've been working some sessions with Jim Keltner, who's 80, 81, 82, and has an amazing resume. And he said, and it's been really good vibes playing with him, and I think that you would appreciate playing with him. And he said, I could probably make that happen if you'd like. So I thought, because I love hanging out with and playing with older musicians, because they know more than younger musicians, no matter what. They know more than younger musicians, and spending time with. So we set up a session in Los Angeles, and I didn't know what to bring to the session, because I didn't know what I was expecting from the session. I'd never met this guy. I'd never worked with him. I didn't know the record was already done. So I was basically going to record some orphan songs. We don't really put out 7-inches anymore. Otherwise I would have planned a 7-inch.
Yeah.
So we brought 3 different songs, one that had been left, out of the song list for the record, and then one of the repeaters, which was that Tense Hash, Keeping Secrets Will Destroy You, and then a song that I'd written for a low-budget horror movie made by a guy named London May. And the one that seemed to work was that keeping secrets will destroy you. And then it just seemed like I've long not supported the whole concept of the way that release dates, the tyranny of the record release date. And I asked Drag City on this record, I said, finally, let's do this. It doesn't, we've got nothing to lose anymore. This whole industry is in a complete disarray and shambles like much of the rest of the world. What if we didn't treat the release date like the end of the record, but the beginning of the record and the beginning of talking to people about the record? And they were down, and it was terrific doing it that way. And it seems to make so much more sense because most records just seem to die on the release date these days with the amount of music that comes out.
Yeah.
And the way that music comes out. But also nobody, the audience is at a disadvantage on the release date because writers and whoever else has heard these advanced copies and the audiences haven't. And so we read and we're expected to trust music journalists, which that's something that's been proven to not necessarily be the greatest place to put our trust. And, but this song existed. There's some singers here in Louisville that I had performed the song live with and thought, oh, well, I'll ask them to come over here and sing on the song. And then it just seemed like a nice sort of a nice exit for Drag City and Domino. It was sort of, that would be the end cap on our work, our active work on letting people know that this record exists would be to put out this song because it can and ultimately does now share the title with the record. And and it's a beautiful, again, it's a very different, I think, recording from the record, but it's beautiful, and there's lots of insane performances on it. So yeah, just put that song, put the song out there as a way of just saying, goodbye, thank you. Now let's, we'll begin to move on to new things, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad we got to hear it. It is. I'm not sure it would have fit perfectly in the fabric of the record, but it does feel akin to the record, and it is beautiful. And the video that you put out with it is great. So yeah, I'm very glad that we got to hear that. You mentioned voices. I have a whole section of my notes. I want to talk about voices with you.
Sure.
Because you are, I mean, you're a singer-songwriter in many ways, in addition to many other things, which means that we do hear your voice a lot. But you are sort of known also for including lots of other people to sing with you, almost like duet partners at times, whether it's Ashley Weber in Lie Down in the Light, or Angel Olsen on Wolfroy, the great Don McCarthy on The Letting Go. Yeah. And now Dane Waters on this newest record. So there's many, many, many more. Those are just to name a few. But how, especially when it's like one person that does a lot of the other singing with you, how do you go about usually finding the right voice for the right record?
Well, yeah, no, but I've been thinking, I've never been quite comfortable with the title singer-songwriter, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been specifically thinking about it over the past few days because I was listening to these narrations by the awesome Phil Elverum and the awesome Kyle Field talking about records they made about 20 years ago or so. Phil Elverum's Mount Erie credited to the microphones, and Kyle Field's Like Green Leaves credited to his Little Wings project.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we do for a living? And just in the past day or so, I was thinking, no, it's more like singer, record maker.
Yeah.
And even the performances, they're all different things, and they can be really wild and interesting and surprising and satisfying, but they do share a relationship to something like what a book read or a writer does when they travel around and read little parts of their books. It's not the same, but it is the same on some levels. But because it's like I'm thinking about records. I'm thinking about I got into this because I wanted to make records in the way that somebody might want to write books or make movies.
Yeah.
Rather than be in front of an audience and sing songs. That was never anything that I ever wanted to do. It was just, I spent so much time listening to records and poring over records, and records were so important to me that I thought, oh, I want to do this. I want to make records. So, each moment of my adult life is spent sort of in anticipation of, and in the early stages or middle stages of trying to create and make a record, or making a record, or in the aftermath of making a record. And in each of those periods, and especially I'm encountering, because I'll go see a lot of music and listen to a lot of music, I encounter other people who are mind-blowing creative musical forces, and usually it pushes my buttons so hard that I think, oh, I want to be around this person and make things with this person, and observe how they, specifically singers. I have a lot of admiration for a lot of different musicians, but singing is my thing. It's what I relate to. It's what I connect with. And it's when I witness somebody singing, I know that internally my lungs and throat and brain are attempting to do or replicate the gymnastics that whatever that person is doing. And that's kind of how I judge if I love a singer or not. It's just, if I can sympathize with where they're coming from and where they're going and where they take me, then I think like, oh, that's my favorite, one of my favorite singers. And each of the people that you mentioned did that to me.
Yeah.
So it's then oftentimes it can be, I can hear somebody, whether it's a singer, specifically we're talking about singers right now, and begin, if there's a group of songs that I'm working on and trying to put into shape so that they could someday be a record, I will then begin, especially, and then I'll maybe, I'll ask the person, I'll say, what do you think, in 6 months or 8 months, would you be willing to participate in making a record with me? And if they say yes, then I will just begin to shape the songs towards that end, even though, one of the greatest parts of the collaboration is surprise. So it's not, I'm not saying, oh, I know when I'm in the studio with Ashley, I'm going to ask her to do this right here. No, it's not that at all. It's, I wonder what she's going to do, because she's obviously, an amazing and resourceful, creative song builder. What will she bring to me, and how will she bring, and what will she bring to the session, and what will she bring to the song? And that's how, but just trying to create an unknown space for this person to bring in and fill and change the color and the trajectory of where the song could potentially go and what its identity eventually will be. So yeah, like each one of those, there would be I remember Ashley we played on Vancouver Island, and she opened, and I'd never heard of her. She didn't have any recordings, and I asked her if she might, I said, do you have any recordings? She didn't, but she had, wonderfully, she had a twin sister, and the two of them, I don't know what you call unique when it's two people, but they're two people have between them a unique voice, and their voices, as their appearance, because they're twin sisters, it manifests for them in this incredible, they sing in a similar way that's dissimilar from anybody else I've heard easily in my entire life. I can't think of a single voice that sounds like their voices, but their voices sound like one voice. So she was like, here, listen to some of my sister's music. And that was kind of helpful. But I know that there was something about her presence, as I love Amber Weber, her sister, as a person and as a musician, very, very much. And I don't know if it would be ridiculous to someday try to sing with her, but but at the same time, there's something, I guess, also because Amber is maybe the more, she's done a lot more touring. She seems to be the more not alpha, but the more extroverted of the two. And I probably identify with I identify with introversion and feel like that's a space that I'm comfortable exploring, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angel came through Emmett because Emmett and I had long discussed. I had long dreamed of bringing this Kevin Coyne record called Babel to life and putting together a touring band to tour this record that Kevin Coyne never actually really toured. And it required a very strong, dramatic, theatrical, capable, ideally female voice. Although, of course, our concepts of gender are wonderfully exploding now as well. But the record came from the late 70s, early 80s, and when gender identities were more popularly, discreetly defined. So looking for somebody who could represent this character, because it's a concept record with two characters, and I kept thinking, who could it be? Who could it be? And then Emmett said, I think I've met someone who could play the Dagmar Krause part, and it was Angel in Chicago, and that was true. She couldn't have worked with somebody better at bringing that, because then we toured that record, we toured Babel, and then we had such a great band at that point where we just kept going for a few years.
Mm-hmm. I know Angel is also someone who, worked with you before her star really exploded, and it's been kind of fun because I listened to Wolfroy when it came out, and it felt like right around then is when her meteor sort of rose. And so that was kind of fun, and I'm still such a huge fan of her first record, and her voice is, I mean, it's true. I mean, I was going to say her voice is kind of unlike anyone else's, but so is Ashley's and so is Dawn's. I mean, you have this way of sort of like locating, like finding these quite unique voices. It's been quite a treat to see like who you sing with around here.
And I want, I want, to do my part in creating a world in which I and everybody else is surrounded by these voices, and that these voices are celebrated. And so that's just seems to be, that's part of the job description as well, it seems like.
Yeah. So as for lyrically, we talked about what some of the driving forces were behind this record. But across your discography and across many songs, I mean, you've always sort of written about and sung about sort of the gnarlier parts of existence, the thornier parts of existence. Positives and negatives in between, romantic strife, sexuality, perils of the earth, etc. But you've always done so with, even from the beginning, you've always done so with such a candor that I feel like a lot of songwriters don't do. And I'm curious, after listening to your music for so long and now getting a chance to talk to you about it, are you or were you ever like shy about putting out some of the lyrics you've penned? Because some of them get pretty blunt, and pretty up close and personal. Or does it never even faze you?
There is, especially now but always with so much music available to us, it is always part of the responsibility in participating in the creation of any given piece of music is, well, why is this not superfluous? And not to say that it isn't superfluous, but if you wanted to argue why it wasn't superfluous, what's in your favor? And so that always felt like, so I think it is, where is the lyric? How does the lyric approach different from others? And who do I share? And the idea is, if you share too much with too many qualities with too many people, then maybe you should sit back and maybe look at another line of work. So on that level, and part of it is also frustration, is thinking, well, why aren't more people singing about certain things? These are things that you find a lot of fulfillment in listening to certain pieces of music, and then you're realizing that you're projecting to some extent what's being said in the song, either because they felt shy about maybe saying things, or their understandable desire for success and acceptance made them wisely choose to skirt around certain subjects or certain specifics. But how, thinking like, well, how far, and you want to permeate people's consciousnesses, right? And you want to latch on to the things that are troubling people, in part to either spur them towards to spur them towards addressing the trouble, whether it's accepting the trouble or taking action against it, or with an idea towards eliminating it somehow. And the only way to do that is to, just slowly walk towards, because it shouldn't be so confrontational that someone feels like, well, my listening experience is all about this specific issue. Well, it's not about that specific issue, but it should be. It can be a part of the whole experience. And I've been thinking about, I've always liked the movies since I was a child. I liked the movies, and I really like the movies. And I don't see too many movies now, just for whatever reason. But I have understood, in seeing certain, what they call pre-code Hollywood movies, how strangely avoidant American popular culture has been since around 1935 to, into the, at least the 90s, and there are strong arguments for into today, but understanding that there's so much of our human experience that, is pushed to the side or thought of as unspeakable. And it felt like, it feels, as so many are expressing now, it feels like there's certain things that you should sing about and you should talk about, whether or not people like to accept that these are parts of our lives.
Yeah. And I mean, one of your most famous songs isn't even all that confrontational. I See a Darkness, that's one that is seemingly immortal. I mean, you carry it with you even now. I mean, you play it live still. You've done a couple different versions of it over the years. So I'm curious then, what is it about that song that keeps you coming back to it? And then have you sort of learned anything new about the song, or changed how you feel about that song over the years?
Yeah, I sometimes I've had concerns that returning to the song, at times I've had concerns that returning to the song, is self-sabotaging in terms of, wrapping one's fate up with something that, just singing. If I sing that song tonight at a show, I'm going to say the line, "I see a darkness," whatever, 8 times.
Yeah.
And that if I'm brainwashing myself, or if I have the ability to brainwash myself, that might not be the best thing to constantly sing. I guess I learned that to some extent when I did the record with Bitchin' Bajas, and trying to think of appropriate lyrical content, turned to my 30-year collection of Chinese fortune cookie fortunes for lyrics. And when we would perform them live, people came up after every show saying, wow, because, Chinese fortune cookie fortunes are all affirmations for the most part.
Yeah.
And people were, and that wasn't the intention, to make affirmative songs. It was just, how can I work with these musicians whom I dearly love and deeply respect, and what's a good, what's a comfortable lyric form that allows me to focus as much or more on the collaboration as on the lyrical content. But people were uh, uplifted by the performances because we sang them like I sang them like mantras over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So I See a Darkness is potentially going to have, on some level, the opposite effect, although it was always intended as a song of optimism and a song of in treatment, I guess. And I can gently tweak the lyrics on any given night as well to give it a slightly different um, direction or intention, or to address an intention that I don't even realize I need to sing until I'm halfway through the song and think, oh, tonight this is what this song is about. Oh, tonight
Mm.
this is what this song is about. At the same time, there, on a structural level, the first verse and the second verse have different chord structures, and that's fun. It's fun to travel through the song musically, and I can play it in a variety of keys as well. And each time I change the key, it changes where it sits in my throat, where it sits in my chest, where it feels in my head, and that puts a new slant on the lyrics. And then as well, because it is an appreciated and known song, there is this phenomenon of, we're out there, I'm out there to identify, establish, reveal, create connection with the audience.
Hmm.
And the song has already done that to some extent. And so each time that song is sung, a good part of its power on any given night is this recognition and celebration of a connection. This is why we're in the same room together. The audience probably has a relationship to the song on some level. I have a relationship to the song on some level. That's the glue that binds us together, and that can be a very a catalyst moment in any given show.
Yeah.
So it's and it's and it, and I yeah. So yeah, that's the best way of describing it.
I mean, it's also interesting too, because the song has sort of taken on this wild life outside of itself. Because, like, I know a lot of people probably were surprised when global pop sensation Rosalia covered it,
Oh wow, yeah,
which is such a beautiful, beautiful cover.
yeah,
Because her voice is incredible. I mean, speaking of, incredible, powerful, unique voices.
yeah,
Um, and then also Johnny Cash covered it, and you sang with him on it. I mean,
yeah.
like, it's had this sort of surreal other existence. So I think that helps its permanence in some way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. Those, both of those performers, giving that song the time of day. I'm sure you can imagine the kind of the strength of the affirmation that comes with each of those is would have been beyond my capacity to dream, before they happened.
Yeah. So I got one question from my fellow Beats per Minute colleagues, because whenever I'm about to interview someone, I usually ask if they have any burning questions.
Yeah.
And I got one from my fellow writer over there, John, who is deeply in love and has been for years with Days in the Wake.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, he says it is his favorite work of yours, and he really wanted me to talk to you about it for a moment. He specifically wanted to know how you relate to work from that era now. And then I'm sort of curious if you remember anything about making that record.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember it fairly well. Um, how do I relate to that? It's these are great. It's so good to hear this question and these thoughts from your colleague, because it gives me, I have unique access to exploring the potential power of that record, because it was part of my life, and I know that as the years go on, I try to listen, or in approaching music, I wonder, there are levels on which I don't know how to say this. Like, well, let's just talk about the record for a second.
Sure.
So, yeah, we made "There's No One What Will Take Care of You" record, Palace Brothers, which wasn't Palace Brothers wasn't really. It was myself and my friend Todd Brashear playing songs together. I wrote the majority of the songs, and the others were covers. Todd never presented an original song, but we called it Palace Brothers because we wanted to harmonize with each other, and we were just fans of the Everly Brothers and Louvin Brothers. And then when Drag City said, well, they accepted the idea of putting a 7-inch out, and they said, well, where's the full length? And okay, so we brought more of our friends together to make a record, but there was no like band meeting or idea that this was a band or anything like that. And
Right.
after that, and everybody, I love working with people who have their own lives because that helps make, I think, a multidimensional record. And after that, people went on with their own lives, doing different things and trying to then think, well, how do I make another record now? It was brand new to me, all this. And I think we tried to make a record with Grant Barger, who recorded that record and plays on it. And I couldn't figure it out. And I didn't know what to do. I had songs and the songs were sort of, there were a few songs that I worked on with a friend of mine named Brian Rich, and he was living in Moscow for some reason, and I went to visit him, and we worked on songs there. And then I think he was doing journalist work, and he had a Marantz cassette recorder, stereo cassette recorder used to record interviews, specifically to sync with film or video. And so I bought it from him for, I don't remember, $400, I think. And it came with a microphone. He gave me a microphone. And I just thought, well, time is moving on. I tried to make this record once. It was a failure. I should just record the songs, and that will be that, and then we can move on. And so I carried the Marantz around with me here in Louisville, Kentucky, and also in Birmingham, Alabama, where I don't remember if I lived anywhere then, but I stayed with family in Birmingham, stayed with family in Kentucky, and recorded some at my parents' house and some at my older brother's house in Birmingham, and just pretty much. And then I think my younger brother sat next to me and played some guitar on 2 songs. My older brother and his wife were in the room when we did the song "Come on Little Dog," and in order to do overdubs, we took the cassette out of the Marantz, recorded a couple tracks on the Marantz, took the cassette out, put it on his stereo in the living room, played it there, and then we played live along to that.
Oh, wow.
And recorded that onto the Marantz. That was "Come a Little Dog." And I think I was thinking, how do I make this kind of very, very minimalistic record, and what would my models be? And I know the 2 models I used were, a friend of mine had given me a cassette of, PJ Harvey has this tendency of releasing demos for her records, and I guess for her first record, she had released maybe the Island Records had released this limited edition demos from. What was that called? The first record?
Dry.
Was Dry the first record? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Dry. So it was the Dry demos, and I, as many people have stated with a lot of PJ Harvey records, the demos I found much more affecting than Dry is a great record, but the demos were more powerful for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like one of the only a Bob Dylan record that I love, and one of the only records of his that I can even listen to without being bored to tears that has come out in the last, say, 40 years was his record "Good as I've Been to You," which was his. He played the whole record by himself. It came out probably in 1990, 1991. So it was a new record at the time. And he's doing ostensibly traditional and public domain songs. That's what's claimed on the liner notes, although he, as his also tendency, just completely stole arrangements and stole copyrights and claimed them as his own.
Yeah.
Knowing that he is a behemoth that can't really be challenged and won't be questioned. But it's a great record. And so I was, kept listening to those two records over and over again, thinking like how many different keys are represented and what is the, how many time signatures and what's the sequence of these records so that makes me want to listen to them again and again and again, and thinking like, well, if I just keep doing that, I can maybe put a record together that people will appreciate listening to,
Yeah.
And then, I was, like I say, mostly kind of completely by myself or by chance. If one of my brothers was around, I would say, would you come in here while I try to record this song and maybe play something? But it was a lonesome affair and a record made out of complete desperation.
Yeah. And that's interesting because that is so long ago in your discography, and it is a record that I've had, and I'm sure my colleague and others have had in their lives for a while. I had no idea of the story behind that, so that's very interesting for me to hear too.
Yeah. And it was funny also because the cover, people then said, oh, this is, I think, people were like, oh, well, this is some sort of a Jandek reference. And I would say, who's that? And I learned who Jandek was. And it does resemble records, at least superficially, for sure.
So I do have one ungraceful segue. There's no segue. Because we do have to wrap up shortly, but before I let you go, I would be remiss without asking about your film work. You mentioned you love the movies. I'm also a film guy. I studied film in college. I'm a big movie person, and I know that you have acted a few times.
Yeah.
I'm sure I first saw you in Matewan, but that was long before I knew who you were as a musician. So the first time I saw you consciously was Old Joy, the beautiful Kelly Reichardt film. She's such an incredible filmmaker. If people out there haven't seen her films, please seek them out. So you were, you had a main role in Old Joy. You've had a cameo in Wendy and Lucy, and then you've had a slew of other film work as well. Matewan is from the late 80s. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's before you put out any published music.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was no, we filmed it in 86. All my friends pretty much were music people. I was 16 here in Kentucky, and we're actually at that time, some of my closest friends, we did everything together, and so they said, well, let's, would you want to be in a band with us? And I'm thinking, what does that even mean? Because I was acting, and then I took pictures, so I was always at band practices taking pictures of stuff. But I thought like, well, that's a way of deepening our relationship. And I remember them sending me sort of demos or parts of songs when we were shooting Matewan, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. I don't, I literally don't know anything about. I was, playing music, and after about 6 months, I think they said, well, we're going to go on and move ahead without you. That's a good idea. And then that was the and Slint was that band.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was acting ever your primary aspiration? Was that something you wanted to really, really get into, or was it something that just sort of happened?
No, it was absolutely my primary aspiration. And then I was wonderfully and horribly misled by the experience of making Matewan, because that was an incredible experience. And I thought, okay, this is good that I put so much time and energy into this work, because this is absolutely what I could see doing for the rest of my life. And then when I explored it more after I graduated high school, I realized that Mate One is an anomaly, and John Sayles and Maggie Renzi, his producing partner, do not do things for the reasons that other people do them and in ways that other people do them. And the bulk of the entertainment industry is done in really kind of alienating and unpleasantly challenging ways. And then I was really lost then at that moment. In my around age 19 or 20, I realized like, oh, I don't want to do this at all. I don't want to live in Los Angeles. I don't want to live in New York, and I don't want to meet these people. I don't want to work with any of these people. This is terrible. What the fuck am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And was able to sort of tie all of my experience in, being with musicians and listening to, records and loving and caring about music so deeply with my experience in theater and production and understanding what it is to make things, and to perform things. And so very slowly, because I started to learn to play an instrument at age 19, I think, 18, 19. And then thought, well, I'm going to, I started working with Todd on songs, and then we recorded them, sent them to Drag City, and they liked them. And then I thought, wait, and then they put out the 7-inch, and they sent us a few $100s. Like, this is a profit from this.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. I think this is what I need to be doing.
So if you kind of skirted out of the industry, so to speak, how did you end up meeting and working with Kelly?
Kelly specifically, I think through my friend, the absolutely mind-blowing artist and writer, Alan Licht, was working maybe at Kino with Kelly, friends with Kelly. And I think she made this movie called Ode, which was her second movie. It doesn't even really hardly exist now. I think Anthology in New York just tried to show it. And from her, they got a digital copy that was so bad and pixelated that they ended up finding a VHS copy and showing the VHS copy instead, because that's what you can find. But she had put some music. She was editing this movie Ode, and she had put some temp music in, and asked Alan if he thought I would be game, I think, for replacing the temp music with original music. And I was, and that was the beginning of our relationship. And throughout, because Mate One is such a fantastic, unique movie, people would still, sometimes reach out to me for one thing or another. And usually it wasn't something that would work out or had any future, but every once in a while, like conversations with Kelly or with David Lowery and Toby Hallbrooks, his producing writing partner. These are sometimes things really work out. Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like I heard this maybe on the commentary or read it somewhere, but is it true that you improvised the Old Joy story monologue in Old Joy?
Yes. There was something that was written in there was a story that I don't think John Raymond, the writer, or Kelly realized was kind of popular urban lore. And I had heard it from a couple of different people. And I thought, if anybody else has heard this story before, they're going to lose focus at this moment in the movie. And so I think, so I think I suggested to Kelly, I said, here's some thoughts. What would you think about doing, exploring these thoughts instead of the speech as written? And she said, go for it. And so, yeah.
It's such a beautiful movie. I mean, I was so happy that Criterion released it a couple years ago. It's a beautiful transfer. I mean, you give a lovely performance. Daniel London gives a lovely performance. It's so good. I hope the Criterion release lets more people see it.
It's a beautiful movie, and yeah, God bless, especially Criterion over the past 5 or 6 years. It's really carved out a very, I think, great and I'll dare say, hopefully important, place in our culture.
Yeah. Did you happen to catch
as well as the DVD series? Yeah.
Did you happen to catch her last film? Because I missed it when it came through my state showing up.
No, I have not.
I know. I need to somehow catch up with that because I heard it was lovely, and Michelle Williams and her work so well together. So I was very excited about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
It's been over an hour, and I've had quite a pleasure speaking with you. You had a good 2023. I hope 2024 is just as bountiful and fruitful for you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking an hour or so to chat with me today. Will, I really thank you for that.
Thanks for your time, and thanks for collecting and spreading, music stories and keeping people informed and connected. I'm very, very grateful for your work.
I appreciate that. I'm grateful for your work. It's been monumental to me as an artist over the years. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Will.
Peace out.